Hi, friends, and welcome to H3 TV. I want to say happy Monday, but it's Tuesday. I just realized it's Tuesday. It was Memorial Day yesterday. So I'm glad you're with us. We always come together every week, at least once a week, and just talk about disruption. And we talk about how do you stay hopeful, healthy, and happy. And I do my best to not watch the news, but losing that golfer this weekend just weighs heavy on my heart and reminds me there's so many hurting in the world. And so we come to you in your office and in your living room and sometimes in your bedroom, and we say, hey, don't give up. We've got ideas, we've got strategies, we've got encouragement. And so we just love to meet with you every week on what I call H3 TV, where I interview someone on how do we stay hopeful, healthy, and happy through the hard seasons of life. So please help me welcome to the stage. Oh, your name's hard for me. Ambika Devi, Danny. Okay, welcome. Tell us who you are. I'm sorry.
It's
I'm so
Ambika Devi. Davy like Davy Jones, Annie.
Ambika.
Hi,
I don't know
everybody.
Davy
I'm
Jones.
Davy Jones, either in the ocean or from the monkeys. The word Devi means goddess. Hi, I am Ambika Devi. I am a mind tamer. My expertise is in the field of body, mind, spirit, mind being yoga. Most people don't understand that correlation. And it's through the art of meditation that we learn to tame the mind. However, with all of the years I've lived in this body, because I am in my 60s, I have also gone into its sister studies, which are Ayurveda. My second book happens to be on that topic. And that's for your diet, but not just what you put in your mouth, but your entire environment, what you're taking in sound and through all of your senses, what you see, what you look at, what you read, what you listen to, what you are putting in your body through your mouth, but also on your skin. And also think about it this way: in your environment, the water you're using to bathe in is important. And then spirit or psyche, and that is Jyotisha. So we have yoga for the mind, Ayurveda for the environment, the body, the physical world, and Jyotisha, which is astrology and the science of light, but also vibration. We can think
And
of
we
all of these like metaphysics.
and right now we just want to know your name and where do you live and just a little bit about you as a person, not all your practices and knowledge yet. We'll get to that in a little bit. So where do you live and what's in
I
your
live in the Bermuda Triangle.
okay.
People don't realize that it goes up the coast of Florida. I'm on the east coast of Florida on the
Oh,
Treasure Coast, and the triangle leg goes all along our coast. I'm about 5 miles from the coastline, a little
oh,
higher up.
oh, I did not know that at all. Thank you for educating us and our audiences. And so you kind of teach about mind, body, and spirit, and you use yoga and meditation to do that. Is that kind of
I use many methods. I taught holistic health at the university level for 21 years. So,
okay?
really, when I say body, I mean body, but also environment. And I do give a lot of free information out. So there's tons on social media and also on my website, even in free courses and my blog that you can learn from me to begin with and see if maybe we're a fit.
Well, let's just get to know you today, and we won't worry about your business so much, just more you as a human being. So, is there a time in your life when you went through something hard or disruptive, either in your business or in your personal life? Was there a time you went through something?
Annie, has have you ever interviewed anybody that didn't go through something hard? Truthfully,
Of course not.
there are two guarantees in life. We're going to experience pleasure and pain. That's
Mhm.
part of working through this
Okay,
whole pathway and why we're here for
that's
evolution. I can definitely identify when I was in first grade the first time, because I did it twice. I wasn't having any success with the alphabet. And I was pulled out of school. It was a public school. And then I was placed into a private school. But the deal was I had to do first grade again. And it happened to be a brand new reading technique and spelling technique than what was being taught back then in the mid 60s. It was a transition from many of you probably never even heard of this, but there was a method of teaching reading and writing which used C. Dick and Jane, C. dick run. You might, I don't know if you're old enough to remember that, Annie, but then I was pulled out and put into this brand new program, and everybody, because I wasn't the only kid, everybody in it became voracious learners and
Mhm.
accelerated learners. So I'm
Beautiful.
really grateful that when my parents asked, are you okay with this? Or are you okay with starting first grade again? And I asked, will there be other kids, in the same boat? And they said yes. And I said, sure, I'm
Mhm.
in.
You got to
And
learn a
now,
little better and deeper. And so you're going back a long way in first grade. And what we're really talking about today for our listeners is kind of a disruption. Maybe I need to clarify or be more clear, like a disruption in your adult life. So of course we've all gone through hard periods or seasons throughout our whole life. But is there a time either in your professional or your personal life as an adult that you went through a disruption that you would be willing to share?
I I think I could share many. There have been tons.
Yeah, let's just
Uh,
pick one. Just pick one that kind of we can zone in on and focus on today.
well, later I became an author, and I had a three-book deal with a publisher.
Okay.
And
Nice.
it's likened to what are now called hybrid deals.
Yep.
And I came to find out while I was starting my second book, I had a three-book deal. The first book was out, that I wasn't receiving royalties.
Ooh.
And that was really unfortunate. And I had worked with this gentleman for a decade before this first book came out. So, we had a friendship, and I I really did my best to believe him, trust him, but then it became really apparent that I wasn't receiving those royalties, and I easily was able to confront him on that and get the rights to my second and third book and close that deal.
Oh,
But it
good.
took another 4 years to get the rights to my first book. And
Mm.
by that point, he was selling them even on Amazon. And I still see, I don't even understand. It took me 2 years with Amazon to get them to remove him from that book. So you have to be careful
You have to
when
be
you start
careful.
these things,
And you also have to usually pay to get your rights back. So I have a girlfriend that went traditional and then she saw her book in a dollar store and went, wait a minute, this is not, wait, what's happening here? And she ended up having to pay quite a bit of money. I've had to pay to get my rights back. And it's worth it. That's why more and more people are self-publishing rather than the traditionals. It looks like money up front, but it can end up being cost rather than money. So you learn the lessons, right? You learn through that and you use that wisdom to help the next person that wants to write or wants to figure out how to be better. And so when you went through that of doing your work and writing beautiful words that are your words, and then they feel like they're taken and taken advantage of, taken away, all the things, and that you're not being credited, which is an interesting thing as a writer and speakers. People do take our words at times. Um, but how did you stay hopeful and keep moving forward in the midst of that disappointment or discouragement of having someone feel like they're taking advantage of you and your work?
since I was a little child, I've known that my creativity is my creativity. And I was fortunate to have parents that really supported me in my creative endeavors. And so there's always that foundational block in me that says, "Hey, that's my creativity." But when we look at something like, look, if you go to university or even in secondary school, you're learning information. That information may be coming from a textbook, from another source, and then you might use that later. I mean, we're all cycling and recycling information,
So I'm just going to pull you
but
back in to just the question. You're such a teacher by nature, so I know you want to teach and tell and speak, but I just want to know specifically you in the midst of that time when your royalties were not being given to you. That is super discouraging and hard. And so that's why what we're looking at here is our listeners have been through some of the things our guests have. And so we want to give them strategies to keep going. So what made you, you knew you were creative, you knew these were your gifts you were sharing with the world. What were some of the steps or strategies you used to keep going when you weren't getting the credit for your work?
well, I was also in the music business, so the producer whose label I was signed to, I leaned into him for information and
Okay.
guidance as a friend and a mentor.
Okay.
I talked to a lawyer.
Okay.
Uh, and other than that, I really didn't reach out to a larger circle of friends. It was really those two people that I entrusted with the full story and then just did a lot of self love and self esteem work, you
Yeah. So
know?
I love this. So really what you're saying to our audience is this. When if you find yourself in a situation where you feel taken advantage of financially or emotionally or in your business, as your book felt like, um, go to professionals. I think that is a great tip. So you said one of the ways I stayed helpful is you knew what you knew and you knew what you didn't know, and you didn't make up and pretend to know. You went to resources, to professional, a lawyer, a producer, a connection who was a friend and a mentor that you could trust with their guidance. And I think that's an important thing for our listeners. We don't have all the answers. I tell people all the time, I cannot help you. People will come to me about books, about speaking, and I say, seek professional advice. This is what I know from my experience, but I am not a professional. I'm not legal. So I love that. I think that's the first really important lesson there is you sought professional advice. How about how did you stay healthy? You know a lot about health. As you said, you're a holistic person, but sometimes when we're hit in the gut, no matter how wise we are, we forget what we know because it kind of throws us off a little bit. And so, how did you stay healthy and care for your body, mind, and spirit in the midst of that disappointment? And being taken advantage of it has so many layers to it, too. So, I do understand and appreciate that. So, how did you stay healthy in the midst of that?
And this is what I do to today is I spend time in nature.
Okay.
When I bathe my body and then I go for a walk. That's,
Mm,
beginning of my morning routine. Then depending on the season, I might go outside, practice breath work. That is really helpful. Tuning even further into nature that way. Seriously, bathing for me, just rinsing my body off. If I get shook, I'll just go rinse my body off. But that's me. I'll ground myself. I'll put my feet on the earth,
mm,
and
yes.
I'm always aware of what I'm eating, so I'm not. And I will choose to not eat if I'm upset. So not feeding the physical body, and then journaling, writing. I get a lot of my emotions out that way, uh, and in other art forms. Maybe singing, dancing, stomping, pitch a fit on the floor, scream. Do not underestimate a good primal scream, everyone. Think about how a little kid will just, rage out
Yes.
and then they're playing with toys,
Yeah.
2 minutes later. We have that same mechanism, but here's a really important tip. I did not bleed out negative energy and crank to all of my friends about it. I
Yeah.
can't, I dealt with it. If it came up, I dealt with it myself. I didn't spread that energy out in conversation because when we speak, it goes back in our ears.
Yeah. I think you're saying a lot of really good things. You said one of my favorite words that I cannot say enough to my audience, and that is routine, routine, routine. Have a morning routine. Have a way to start your day. I love that you said grounded, grounded, cleansed, prepared. What she's doing is preparing and releasing before that negative stuff comes in our day or releasing from the previous day. The second thing you said that I think is really important is don't feed. And you gave two great examples of how we feed, which is so common for us as human beings, is we feed it with sugar, we feed it with alcohol, we feed it with food is one. We feed it with comfort food, as we call it, that really just doesn't really feed it. It just mushes it. But the second thing is you said don't keep talking about it. That's feeding it too. That's adding gas to the fire, adding fuel, adding fuel. And we're giving power away from ourselves when there's someone negative and we're repeating. We might need to talk it out a little or journal it out, and that's okay. But don't just keep repeating. People get stuck in the repeating. How about happy? I think that laughter truly is the best medicine. So, where did you find humor and laughter in the midst of the frustration and disappointment of someone
Oh,
taking?
I have no problem admitting that I watch TV. I watch movies. I have Netflix,
Okay.
uh, and so I will immerse myself in something that will bring back that sense of comedy or romance, or romantic comedy will make me laugh a lot, and study. You know, Annie, one of my mottos is when we stop learning, we stop living. And I stay immersed in study.
So learning is your joy. I mean, learning it, and have talked a couple times already about you are a learner. You're a lifelong learner. You, no matter how much you know, you're still going to keep learning and keep learning. And I think learning does bring you joy. I think it's, oh, I discovered something new. I learned something new. I love that feeling every day. So what I want to know, because of the work you do and because it's so important that you work with people on their own stuff, how have you used your own difficult or challenging experiences, this one and others, to this point in your life to help others? What have you done? How have you used the fuel from the pain to pour out into helping other people?
Definitely publishing books.
Okay, how
And
many books do you have now?
I have six of my own under my own publishing label, which is Mythologem Press.
Okay.
You know, a good example is I had moved here to Florida to be with an elderly parent, like so many people do. And my mom had me later in life. So, you know, there's that. There's almost a 40-year spread was between us. And I knew I wanted to be with her and help her at the end of her life. And so I moved here. And then she died in 2019. And then in 2020, we got locked down. So I was isolated. And so I had already been writing poetry and short stories and all sorts of things. And I decided to group them all into my sixth book, which is, it's called Cupid is a Bastard. And even the pictures on the cover are selfies, really, you know, lockdown honesty. And it's got artwork, it's got poetry, it's even got recipes in it. It's got quotes by Shakespeare, who I adore, but also other people like Gilda Radner about love and humor. And while I was editing, my editor said, "Hey, you've got some really great chocolate recipes. Would you put some of those in this book?" And
Oh,
I do have a chocolate cake recipe that I coveted. I did not let anyone have it. I would bake it for them, and that was back when I was a devout, really strict vegan. And so I said, okay. And then I thought, you know, I had taught aromatherapy before anybody knew what it was. So I put some of that in and I made some tea recipes. And that got real creative because I always mess around in my own kitchen, but I don't necessarily write everything down. I've got that kind of a processor up here. And I made a tea recipe called Chill the Flower Out. And I have given it to other people. So you see, the humor's there. I mean, I came from a family of immigrants, and you know, you have to be full of humor to
yeah.
survive immigration. And I am third generation on one side, but second on the other. And I heard a lot of hard stories from my family about what happened before I landed here in this body. And one thing that was always there, which is definitely instilled in me, Annie, is humor and having that, especially around when we're feeding ourselves. I mean, I can close my eyes and go right back to a Sunday late breakfast or brunch, what we call, and or dinner. Dinner was important. We got together, we talked about what's going on in the world, we told jokes, people would sing. I mean, it was, you know, we would all talk at once.
I love that. I love you, by freely sharing the recipes, you are truly giving so much of yourself to the reader, and you're engaging so many senses. Because, like, I can smell and I can see and I can laugh and I can feel. So I love that your book is this beautiful. I try not to swear. People make fun of me, but I am not a swear word girl. I'm just like, words are precious. Use kind ones. But I love what's inside your book. I love Cupid. I love rom com.
Hold on, Annie. Bastard is not a bad word. It is,
Really? Oh,
no, 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 it
it
is
feels
not.
so
It is
harsh in my
used as slang, but let's look at this. I think it's misunderstood. Um, Cupid, who is a mythological being,
Of
is the
love.
bastard child of Venus. So this is real mythology I'm quoting here. We
Oh,
don't know who Cupid's father is. It could be Zeus. It could be Mars, aka Ares. It could
oh,
be.
I didn't know it was Greek mythology.
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't know it was
Ah,
astrology.
so and then if we
See,
look
Cupid
at
to me is like a rom-com. Is like Julie Roberts and Pretty Woman, and that's what I think of.
Cupid is the bastard son of Venus, and he fell in love with Psyche, which I think you know what the word Psyche means.
Yeah.
So in the book, there's a short story which is a conversation between myself and Cupid, and it weaves through the whole book.
Oh, I like that.
And this is how I teach mythology because it is a huge passion of mine. And I
Um,
do feel that diving into these old stories, what I call campfire stories or the, village fire at night, one of my favorite styles of talks is to be in an intimate situation, whether it's on stage or with a small group or a larger group, but telling stories and
mm,
weaving the myths of existence.
mm. I there's some women in DeLand, Florida. Do you know where that is?
That's the other side of the state.
Okay. So I spoke for their women's leadership conference, but you might be a good, they're going to do it once a year, but you might be a good presenter for them because a lot of women business owners and a lot of women that are, I don't know much about astrology really at all. I know I'm a Pisces and that's about it. I know I like water and I'm Pisces. That's what I know. But I know that it's a variety of women and it's women business owners and it's women leaders and I think that conversational presentations, I think they're best in any arena, small or large, but they're particularly good in this setting. And it sounds like you really try to connect and storytell. You're
Yes.
a storyteller in
Absolutely. Born storyteller from a long line of storytellers.
yeah.
Yeah, the tales that were woven around our food tables growing up definitely made a big impression on me. And I became interested in Greek mythology as a little tiny kid. I'm
Mhm.
talking second grade. I remember having a large scale hardbound Greek mythology book that I carried with me. And then I was in Quaker school. That's where I had moved from public school to. That's the Quakers taught me how to meditate when I was 6 years old.
Mm.
And they sit quietly once a week. When you go to secondary school or boarding school, which I went to later, you sit for an hour. Can you imagine a 6-year-old sitting for an
I can't
hour
even imagine
every
me.
Wednesday morning? So, how did I become a stationary pillar of Om? That's how. Now,
Wow.
they're not calling it meditation. They just call it meeting for worship, but they're non-denominational, just like yogis. It just went hand in hand. I was introduced to yoga also that year when I was 6 years old.
Huh?
Actually, when
Uh,
I became seven.
so
So
is your primary work writing? Is that what or do you speak or coach or just primarily writing is your
all
main?
of that, all of that. To me, and also in talking to writers, uh, you really have to be a speaker if you want to sell your books. You have to remember, I came from the music business when we were making albums on giant refrigerator size reel to reel recorders.
Ah,
And
okay.
then it went digital. And then what happened? Everybody and their brother and sister could make music and market it. And then what happened? My producer took a backhoe and emptied out two warehouses into dumpsters. Can you imagine the pain? I mean, yeah.
What kind of music is your music? What is are you a
Uh,
singer or producer or?
I was a singer and a drummer.
Ah,
And I worked in the corporate market as well as, which was commercial, but I also, on that label, I did work as a studio musician. So I entertained for big companies like Coca-Cola, BMW, at resorts in Arizona when I lived there.
okay.
But in the studio, that was a more healing chant label, very famous, called Invincible. And we went through that transition. Now, at that time, I was writing my first book. And then what happened? Books became digital, right? So then these became big business cards.
Yeah,
That's what a book is. It really is. So we have to learn how to talk about it. Gone are the days when I get signed to a label, a publishing label, and then they put me on book tour. No, I paid for my first book tour.
yeah,
I leveraged it with other work, with coaching, seeing clients that I used to see in other areas and made it work. But it's all on us, if we want to make something happen.
for sure. And if we write it right, whether we use it as a calling card or marketing or whatever, it will lead to more work, whether that's speaking or coaching or whatever. So, in its typical week in your life, I'm still not clear.
Yeah, good
There's nothing
luck.
typical. She was going to say there's nothing typical. I get that.
I'll do my best.
But is your primary getting that book out there? Is your primary doing women's retreats?
Ah,
I'm trying to
okay.
get a visual of what, for our audience, if they're listening to you, what would be their connection with you if they were said, "Hey, this is really amazing woman, interesting, fascinating. I want to learn more." Are you looking more to get hired as a speaker, to coach with people, to help people write a book, to help people produce music? You
Oh,
know,
no, 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 not music, not produce music. No, I would, if it's one of the facets that is me or has been up front,
yeah.
then if that's not something I'm interested in right now, I will definitely refer people to the right people. As far as writing, I write every day. Is it going to be in a book? Maybe. Would it be in a contest? It could be. I've won lots of writing contests. To me, actually, I have to give the creds to my first publisher for that, because when I did publish my first book, I first of all I wanted to write a self-enrichment book, a self-help book.
Okay.
And he said, no, get your creds as a writer, write a novel. And I thought, yeah, I had been a professor at the university level of holistic health. And back then, what did I want to do? I wanted to help everybody get healthy. Which is happy? Or is it? Do you have to be happy to be healthy? No. Do you have to be healthy to be happy? No. That's the topic of my second book, which is called Unfolding Happiness.
Yeah.
And
I think the more we discover about physical health too, we recognize it's one element. And, sadly, for me, I mean, I have a lot of passions as well and a lot of work, but one of my main passions is mental health. And, last week or the week before, I saw the Amy Winehouse movie. And
oh,
then my husband loves golf. And, we talked about the golfer that took his life this weekend. And always try to remind people, how you look and the amount of money you have and the amount of success does not equal happiness. Like health
it
is
doesn't.
it's your body, it's your finances, it's your emotion, it's your relationships, it's all seven of these areas that if we're neglecting one, no matter how bright and shiny, especially on silly social media, one can look, people can be so broken. And it's literally gut wrenching to me. And it's my passion is to get people to talk about that and to get organizations to recognize the ROI is that if you care about people as one being, they show up. They show up more often. They call in sick less, but it's not just physical, it's the emotional, mental, financial, relational health that people are struggling in their relationships and and
Ah,
it's
yes.
heartbreaking to me how much sadness exists. So you're correct is that no matter how much wisdom we have around health, we have to think about that whole being, as you are. Do you have a success story with someone you've worked with, an individual or an organization that you'd like to share with our audience today?
Sure. And to answer that previous question, speaking is definitely the number one upfront, and everything else I'm doing right now to support that and publishing courses on my website and writing blog or putting something on my podcast or anything like that. It's all about getting in front of bigger audiences to share not just the message, but techniques and real usable formatting so that people can hook into it and get an experience right away.
Got it.
Um, a success story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you one about astrology. In astrology, we can look at location of people, places, and things from those locations that affect us. And I had a client that wanted to go study in another state. And this was from back when I was in Arizona. And they had three choices: Pennsylvania, Florida, and Chicago. And I looked at the locational astrology and I said, I can put these in a hierarchy from first to my least favorite out of those three. And he was for some reason set on Chicago, and that was number three on my list. And Pennsylvania was where he was from. That made sense, but actually, it was the Florida location that was going to be better. And he didn't listen to me. And I said, "Look, are you open to anything else? You know, because you have amazing energy in Colorado. If I were you, I would go to Colorado and heck with those places. And why do you want to study this anyway? You're doing this other stuff now, which I think if you want to do a pivot, maybe we need to talk about what to pivot into. But honestly, if you're moving, Colorado, number one. He went to Chicago. He moved in with a friend. He was actually slated to move in with a friend. He gets there, it's winter. Imagine coming from Arizona in the heat to Chicago winter. I'm talking harsh, freezing rain, right? Shows up there. Friend says, sorry, you can't move in. Now he's out on the street in the night with his car and everything he owns. He ends up staying there for 3.5 years, struggling, being miserable. Finally, one day he calls me and he's like, what should I do? I said, go to Colorado. So he finally listens to me, gets a ticket. He buys the ticket. He gets off the plane. He's standing on the tarmac and he calls me. He just got out of the plane and he says, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. I just stood on the ground here and I feel amazing." And he was working as a massage therapist. There's a chain called Massage Envy. He had 2 interviews that day. And he got hired by both places were hiring part-time. He rented an apartment and was, believe it or not, happy ever after. So there you go. That's just one with an astrology
Well,
bent to it.
yeah, and it's also your awareness of your own ability to be intuitive. And if people will listen to that intuition or astrology or whatever, or the combination, that you can give them clarity on where they want
It's
to go
just
in
it's
life.
just
A lot
one
of
of
people
the
lost.
examples.
Yeah.
But then oh,
Why
so
not?
many. I mean, people just struggling with health
Yeah.
and struggling with their emotions,
So if people
and
want to work with
needing
you,
to
or
maybe make a pivot or
yeah. So if people want to work with
go
you or get
go
to know
ahead.
more about you, where is the best place for them to find you?
At my website, which is ambikadevi.com. So if you're just listening and not watching, spell my name Ambikadevi and then .com. You can message me, and there's tons of info there. And I would love to be your guest, be your speaker, be your coach, be your mentor, and to be your friend. So please reach out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being my guest today. Remember, to our audience, if you have questions or comments, please leave them wherever you find us on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, and one or both of us will respond to any questions, thoughts, or more information. We'll also make sure to share links in our comments so you can reach out quickly and find us. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for being my guest, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.